Okay, good afternoon everybody and welcome to today's Cabinet meeting, the 18th of September. We are live streaming this meeting and also you can catch it on YouTube afterwards, I'm sure if you want to watch it again. So, everybody's got their papers or devices ready, so if you're watching in the public gallery, I don't think we have anybody today, but there may be some in here, and indeed if you're watching on live stream, again, welcome. Before we begin, in the event of an evacuation alarm sounding, everyone should vacate the building through the nearest exit and proceed directly to the assembly point. So we'll start with item 1 on the agenda, as we always do. Dan, are there any apologies for absence today?
Thank you, Chair. We had apologies from Councillor Over.
Okay, fine. And Councillor Moyo has also sent apologies for today as well. Gul Nawaz is also on holiday. Nigel and Andy, thank you. So we'll take those as read. I'm told there are no petitions to Cabinet. Dan, is that correct?
That is correctly.
Within the Council. And I say that because there is still undercurrents and rumblings of instability, and I would urge all members, particularly those in the opposition, to bear in mind the good work that we've done so far and that we'll continue to deliver together collaboratively. I'll hand over to Matt if he wants to add anything further, or if members have got any questions on the report, we can bring them out. Matt.
Thank you, Leader. This report went to the Scrutiny, Growth and Resources last week, and there were no changes or amendments to the report. They were very supportive of the progress being made. I think this is the third report from the panel. We are entering that phase now, that final phase around where we might look to exit intervention. We are on that sort of first tier intervention with government, but it's extremely light touch at the moment with the department. That's due to end at the moment in December, and we are giving some thought around what further support we can get from the Local Government Association wider around our improvement journey. But the report does highlight still some key challenges, and that's not surprising, but you'll have seen a number of councils across the country nationally. The financial context in which we're operating in now is pretty tough. There have been a number of 114 notices issued. I am stressing we are not in a 114 territory, but we are a council which has had a period of financial distress, and we are now coming out of that. But it's really pushing us to think through around how do we continue with that transformation journey? How do we really rethink and redesign some of our services, culture, organisation, in line with our corporate strategy, which was unanimously agreed by City Council last year. So we're making very good progress, but the report, I think, is very helpful and does highlight a number of areas that we need to give some further thought to. Thank you, Leader.
Members, any questions on this report? Councillor Ayres.
Thank you, Chair. It's quite a small one, but it's to do with paragraph 414 about the accounts. Because it says here, ideally the panel would wish to see all 3 sets of accounts audited and signed off during the current financial year. And my question is, what if they're not? And it's because of Ernst & Young, as I understand, it's because of our external auditors that they're not signed off. And I just wondered what would happen if they weren't.
Emma's got that job of answering the question, I think. She's poised and ready to go.
So there are a lot of challenges in that area at the minute. A lot of it is to do with the workforce in local government audit. DLUC at the minute is reviewing the regulations and guidance that they are giving auditors. There are some deadlines that have been set, so audits will need to be completed within set deadlines. I don't have them to hand on me right now, but I can confirm those with you after the meeting. So there is a real push around getting audits signed off at those dates. If they are not, I think DLUC are still in considering what they will do. So it may well be that they qualify accounts in order to move things along. There is a significant backlog. I think there's roughly around 500 sets of accounts outstanding across the sector. So they are trying to progress this and move it forward. So if the council is one of those ones that they propose to qualify, obviously we would look to try and get our accounts audited by EY. I know Cecilia is already in discussions with the PSSA, who set who our auditors are and the fees, and we're already in contact with SIPFA around this to ensure that we are not in that category and that we do get our accounts audited. We want that confirmation that our accounts are robust, that they replicate the financial improvement that we have made, and we want that assurance from that, so we will be pursuing that to make sure we get them audited.
If I could just raise just another, so when you talk about qualifying accounts, can you just explain that to us, what that means? Because does it mean that you can continue and use the figures, as it were, to move into the next year, if you see what I mean?
Did you want to
Councillor Coles?
No, I've got a question actually.
Oh,
I'll
you've got a
wait till
que-
Emma answers.
He's got a
She-
question.
she's the detail.
Oh, right. Go on,
So
Emma.
in terms of qualifying accounts, what they will do is they will potentially look at areas of the account. So for example, they may look at the going concern note, they may look at the value for money assessment. They won't do a full audit of the accounts. So essentially they will do a light touch and they will qualify them because they haven't given the full assurance that those balances are true and fair. That's what qualifying means.
Matt wants to qualify the qualification, I think.
Just to clarify, you normally want unqualified accounts, which is good news. Qualified is where there's an issue with the accounts. But this is a national issue, so it would be quite unprecedented to say that all local government accounts are qualified. So this is quite a big issue. But this is over the last 2 years, and as a sector, it's pretty appalling. We have escalated it. I know Cecilia has flagged this to Rob Whiteman at SIPFA, but it's really pretty poor. Where actually there is a normal check and balance around your accounts. You know, we submit them for audit, and you know they will always find something. There'll be some issues. That's good. That's good governance, and it goes completely against all the Nolan principles and everything. You know, accounts are there to be verified, publicly inspected, transparent, etc. So to get qualified isn't good news.
Andy.
Thank you, Chair. It's really good to hear from the Chief Exec that we are almost out of intervention and that we've improved so much, and that's really good news. I suppose with the continuing pressures about having a lack of audit over our figures, there's also other issues. We're dealing with 5.1 million in the budget, for example, and it's going to go up to 10 million in a couple of years' time. So despite us not having an improvement panel, do you have adequate support from external people to make sure, in terms of mentoring or otherwise, that if there are any further issues, that you get support outside of the council?
I think it's a very good question, timely. I think as a council, certainly all of my top team are encouraged to have mentors and coaches. I think it's really good practice. I think anybody in a sort of director level should be reaching out for support. These are fairly unprecedented times. I was at a conference last week speaking around our experience around intervention and transformation with a whole set of 5 other councils. Ours is quite a positive story. Not everybody has engaged readily with government and commissioners and improvement panels, and I think cross-party and the administration should be praised for the ability and the way we've opened up for that level of external challenge and support. I think the improvement panel have been very supportive, but they have challenged us and they are continuing to challenge us on it. The Local Government Association, SIPFA, DLUC, there are lots and lots of avenues for support, and I just think that's never going to stop. That we're always going to be looking for that support as a sector, including private sector, third sector. You know, these are really, really big issues that we're facing now, and we need constantly to look at how do we deliver that in a different manner going forward. And I've urged also all yourselves as politicians. I think we're looking to step up the training and development budget. We've got peer mentors for all the group leaders and everything, and it's a choice. That's not forced on anybody, but I think that's really important for members, and we've just done an external review around our governance and scrutiny arrangements. That will be published, and that's, we will learn from that and we'll implement changes necessary. So I think it's a really important aspect of how we continue to learn from the best and learn from other places.
Thank you. I'm guessing our particular panel members being so efficient at doing their job that they're probably on call for elsewhere, and we may not have that ongoing relationship with them going forward.
I mean, I think I spoke to the chair a few days ago. They're always at the end of the phone if we needed a quick conversation. But yes, there's a fair few number of councils out there at the moment who are struggling. They are well run, but the financial, inflation pressures, energy, social care are really starting to hit a number of councils now. Some of them were around commercial entities, but now it's real pressures. It was reported on the news this morning around the work going on across the country, around the sector.
I share Matt's optimism, but with a degree of pessimism. Pessimism. That's right, isn't it? You know what I mean. I think that looking towards exiting the panel and the improvement work may be a little premature. That's just a feeling I have today, and I think it might extend a bit longer. That we have an improvement panel this week, and it'll be interesting to hear what the panel have to say about where we are today, given the political uncertainty, which seems to have raised its head again, and I made mention of that earlier in the meeting. So, but I'll have to come back to Cabinet and report next time in terms of where we are. But I think it may go on a little bit longer than perhaps we'd hoped for, and we'll see what happens. But dealing with the report as we have it today, yeah, we can be proud of the collaborative work, cross-party work, I'll be clear. Again, I think some members think I don't give credit to them, but we've managed to get through and did the budget. We've worked to where we are. We have seen improvements, and I'm keen for that to continue. But that is not necessarily in my hands alone. So thank you, everybody. If there are no more questions from members on that. Oh, Ryland, sorry, I missed you.
Thank you. To quote from the report, it says the panel concludes that a huge amount has been achieved in the last 6 months through the hard work of dedication of members and officers. But they do go on to warn that the next 6 months will be critical, improving the new foundations are solid to weather the coming and continuing challenges. How important is it that we continue to deliver and work together as a whole council, the same as we have done for 6 months, as the report says, to prove that we are stable and to prevent us going back towards intervention? We're on the right path, but how important is it that we continue as we've been recognised for doing?
I'll let you. Pessimistic, that was what I was looking for, by the way.
I mean, I remain
You can be
optimistic. I mean, I think the council should be proud of what's been achieved. I mean, the chair of the panel has described it as a complete sea change of what they saw in the council when we first started this work. I think the challenges by its nature have evolved over time and are quite different. The financial challenges, whilst we sort of closed down the budget gap and, you know, suddenly another budget gap appears, we've got fresh pair of eyes, fresh team in place, senior team, internal and external appointments. I think the culture of the organisation has changed remarkably, as typified by the staff awards. The politicians, I think, have stepped up to the challenge very well in terms of that engagement. And they do make a lot of reference around the cross-party working. That's really essential. And it's about collective responsibility for the issues that we find ourselves in. And there are going to be some really tough decisions coming up in the next few months as well, without a doubt. And we need to collectively take that on board, risk assess, you know, evidence-based, business case, etc. But, you know, unfortunately, we are not blessed with, you know, millions and millions of pounds of investment. We need to look at different ways to accelerate that. But as a city, we are expanding very quickly, and there's a lot of exciting plans and stuff happening right now across the city. So I think that's really important.
Okay, anybody else? No, good, thank you. So, positive report. Let's hope that continues in the final quarter of the year. There are recommendations as detailed on the report itself. On page 11, there are 2 with some subsections. I won't read them all out. Are we all agreed with those recommendations? I don't see any dissent. Thank you very much, everybody. Now for the big topic of the day, or is it the big topic of the day, or is it the next one? They're all big topics. The budget simulator launch, which is pages 31 to 36, is agenda item number 6, and I think Councillor Coles is going to introduce this one.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I will. Members, the report before you today seeks your approval to launch our budget simulator as part of the 2024 and 2025 budget setting process. You may recall that we used the interactive tool last year to allow our residents, businesses and other stakeholders to learn more about the breadth of services that we provide and to have their say on which services matter the most to them. In total, we received 4 times as many responses than usual for a budget consultation in this council, which was great progress. This year, we want to use the simulator again and engage directly with communities to encourage even greater participation. We plan to do this by attending community meetings to talk about our budget position and the simulator, and by sharing information at libraries, community centres and other locations. In fact, I'm already booked in for tonight, so I hope that this one goes through, but there we are. We'll see. In the coming years, like most councils across the county, we have budget gaps to fill. We are predicting pressures of £5.1 million in 2024-25, rising to 6.1 million the following year, and in 26-27, 10.5 million pounds of pressure. Inflation and high demand for services in children's and adult services have increased our budget gaps in the recent months. This means we will once again have to make some very difficult decisions when setting our budget for the new financial year. The simulator will help us to understand what is important to our residents when we do that. If there are any questions, I'm delighted to be accompanied by the 2 grand dames of the process, which is Emma Riding and Amanda Rose from Finance and from Communications. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. So, any questions, members? Anybody? All right. Councillor Ayres and Councillor Ray.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that the intention is to go out to some committees and explain to them what's going on, what the simulator's about, you know, some residents associations and things, parish councils. I just also wondered whether you were actually going out to any of the sort of sixth forms at schools, because and the colleges and the university, etc. Because like one can imagine that the students there would probably quite like to have a go at it.
Amanda.
Yes, so we are Councillor Ayres. So there's a few conversations that are ongoing at the moment. I'm speaking to the tutor of the accountancy and business course at the university, speaking to him Wednesday morning about how we can link in with his students, perhaps a presentation from Councillor Coles about our budget simulator, and how we can use them to spread the word really throughout the university using their skills and expertise. So we've already got some links there. I'm going on the radio station at the Regional College next Thursday as well to talk to students there about it. We've also filmed with, we've done some photos today with Eva, our youth MP, who's sat behind me, hoping that Eva will be able to share information with kind of a younger audience as well. But we're also emailing all our secondary schools and asking whether they can put it on their lesson plans as well. So absolutely, we don't just want to reach one part of the population. Young people are a harder audience probably to tap into when it comes to our budget, but it's not one that we're ignoring.
I think I had Rylan and then Nigel.
Thank you, Leader. We've mentioned the success of doing the simulator last year. What lessons have we learned from that? What have we done to adapt the simulator and improve it for this year? And are there any changes from when we've previously seen the simulator?
Yes, there are. So the simulator worked really well last year, and as Councillor Cole said, we had 4 times as many people respond to a budget consultation as we normally would. But this year we want to go further. We're not content with 200 responses. We want as many as we can possibly get, so it's as representative as possible. So one of the things that we've done this year is to include a little video on each of the sliders. When you go into the simulator, there is a slider for every service area now with a council officer talking about what that service does and what the impact would be of reducing and increasing that budget. And that's because we know that when people engage with us, they don't want to just read information. They respond better if they're listening to information and hearing it said verbally. So we've included that this year, and actually the company that we're using to provide the simulator, it's the first time they've ever been asked to do that, and they're so impressed with it. I think they're going to start offering it to other councils around the country to see if they want to use it. So a good example of Peterborough leading the way, which of course is great. The other thing just to mention is that when it last went before Cabinet members, There were some comments at that point around including council tax, so we've taken that on board and that is now included. So the reason we hadn't got council tax in there as an option previously is because members voted for a council tax increase as part of the medium-term financial strategy at full council in February this year. So we thought, well, we won't include it because that's already been agreed. But as members said, you know, the public could vote for above a 5% council tax increase. It would mean we'd have to go to a referendum and stand the costs of having a referendum, but it is possible, so we should give the public that option to be able to generate additional income. So the simulator does now have a council tax increase above 5% as an option, but there were also comments from Cabinet previously around how we do reach even further into communities to get those responses of from people and go to them directly, and we've had other groups now that we've contacted that have requested a presentation about the simulator as part of that.
Lovely. Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, at the OP breakfast meeting last week, it was they came to us, me and Councillor Ayres, to say they really wanted to get engaged with PCC, and I think this is an ideal opportunity to relate to the members that are already involved with OP to take part in this, exercise.
Okay. Anybody want to comment on that?
Just to say, they're on my list when the simulator launches tomorrow. They're one of a whole load of people that I'm going to be contacting saying, please help us to share the message. So I'll be sharing that with OP to be able to share with their members. Thank you.
Councillor Allen was next. Steve
Thank you,
Allen.
Leader. Thank you, Chair. Picking up on the point that we now have the option to raise taxes in the simulator, looking at other unpalatable choices, I'm wondering whether we are asking whether we should be selling assets, disposing of council property, whether the public have an appetite for that.
Ooh, that's kind of a finance-y type question, but I'll tell you what we'll do. If any members of the public want to write in to increase council tax by 15%, please let us know. I don't think we'll get many replies, Steve, really, will we? Possibly not, I don't know. Make that an Ask the Leader question.
It's not included in this particular iteration, no.
No, it's not. There we go. One for the future, perhaps. Emma, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we could look at that for future purpose. I think it's not a sustainable option. I think as part of trying to set the budget and it to be sustainable in the future, we want proposals that can go into the future. If we sell off assets, it's only going to be a one-off benefit. I mean, it would get us the public's view on that, but it wouldn't be something that we would be factoring in to balancing our budgets on an ongoing basis. So it may give the wrong impression to the public.
Yes, it's not a policy that we'll be following, flogging off the family silver, as Charlie Swift used to say. I think we dispose of assets in a responsible, sensible way when they've either reached the end of their life or we look to replace them with something newer. Or it makes financial sense. For example, St Martin House saves us a considerable amount of money in that purchase. So we purchase and we dispose as appropriate. But yeah, we can't fund our budget by selling everything. Okay. Also, just by the way, Matt's reminded me that we attended the LGA conference just a few months ago, and Localis, who are a national research body, cited the simulator as an innovative piece of work, and also hasn't escaped the sight of colleagues at DLUC as to the work we're putting in to that. As I say, it all comes back to a journey of financial sustainability. I recall taking over as leader and inheriting a £27 million budget gap, which this administration has closed with the help of opposition, not necessarily in the first year, but certainly the 25 million or so in the second year has been truly a team effort. So it's great that we expand on this to involve the public in terms of direct dialogue, that they can see what difficult decisions we have to make when talking about budgets. And I'll leave it there, really, unless anybody's got anything else to add. No. So there are some recommendations, again, in terms of the simulator launch. Well, it's not a recommendation as such. It's just the It is, actually. Just I'm talking nonsense, as usual. It's just what we set out at the beginning. It is just agreeing the launch. That is the only recommendation on page 31. Okay? Thank you. Everybody agreed on that? Lovely. Thanks. Right. Just moving over the pages quickly. Now, I've been away for a week, and in that week, the world has changed in a week. That we seem to have created something of a media frenzy for the next item, which is probably easily explainable, and the officers are here to explain, which is Rob Hill and Jamie. This is the report on the Leisure, Heritage and Library Service Contract Award, which seemed at face value to be fairly straightforward, and I hope it remains so. But this issue is also about releasing or saving some money, which is what we've just been talking about. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any leisure, heritage, and library services. So, who's going to introduce this? Is it Steve? Yeah, Steve Allen.
Thank you, Leader. This report is presented to Cabinet to propose a future operating model for leisure, heritage and library services. It follows on from the Cabinet decision in March this year to establish a not-for-profit subsidiary for Peterborough Limited for the operation of leisure services. But after further analysis also seeks approval to extend the subsidiary arrangement for the operation of heritage and library services. If supported by Cabinet, the proposal will award a 5-year contract to the subsidiary of Peterborough Limited to operate all leisure, heritage and library services. This will allow us to significantly reduce service costs, including business rate savings and NNDR. It'll also enable the Council to maintain its role as Commissioner of these services and therefore set the strategic direction. This is critical to ensure that these important services will continue to be delivered on our behalf, meet the needs of our population and align with our corporate strategy. Finally, I wish to confirm that this Council is fully committed to securing a strong culture, leisure and heritage offer that offers best value, but also allows our city to continue to grow in the interests of residents. And we must remember that, indeed, the Peterborough Limited, with the demise of Vivacity, has all the talent of Vivacity's staff when it was absorbed into Peterborough Limited. This proposal seeks to deal with the immediate financial challenge, but lay the foundation beyond this. If approved, our intention is to continue working closely with the relevant agencies, including the Peterborough Museum and Art Gallery Trust, Peterborough Civic Society, Historic England, Arts Council England and the Libraries team at the Department of Culture, Media and Sport to shape the strategic direction of these vital services going forward. Sitting next to me is Rob Hill, the officer, who I think can flesh out some more information on the report before we go to questions.
Take it away.
Thank you, Leader. Just following on from Councillor Allen's comments. So the paper sets out a clear financial case for this proposal in that the subsidiary approach will significantly reduce our costs. But it's also recommended on the basis that Peterborough Limited already run these services to good effect, and this will provide both themselves and us as the Council the stability to develop a longer-term strategy for the delivery of leisure, libraries and heritage. In doing so, the Council will retain that strategic oversight to ensure the future strategy accords with our organisational aims, and specifically to create a healthy, safe environment where people want to live, invest, work, visit and play, and to create a sustainable future council. In reaching this recommendation, we explored numerous other delivery options that were discounted on the grounds that they were unable to meet our key objective to reduce costs this year. This proposal will enable us to deal now with our financial pressures and maintain provision, but we do recognise that further work will be necessary beyond this to define the long-term strategic vision for these services. And on this point, I should advise Cabinet that since publication of the report, we have had representations around the key proposal from partners in the heritage sector, including discussion with the Arts Council, Historic England, Civic Society and the Museum Society. These key partners seek assurance that our long-term strategy will enable us to maintain museum accreditation status, and that the Council will continue to demonstrate its commitment to culture, arts and heritage in Peterborough. So, again, just supporting Councillor Allen, but I wish therefore to underline our organisational commitment to achieving this and to stress that Council officers will continue to work closely with all concerned parties to meet this aim beyond today's decision. I'll end there and invite questions. Thank you.
Right. I think I've got notified of 3 questions in advance, so anybody else wants to chip in afterwards. But question number 1 is from Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Chair. Can you expand on why you are recommending we extend subsidiary to include heritage and library services in addition to leisure?
Thank you for that. I'll pick that one up. So since the demise of Vivacity Culture and Leisure Trust and the rising cost of utilities, the budget means we do not have sufficient funds to maintain the service as it is. Moving the services into the subsidiary will allow us the opportunity to bring the cost down, secure best value, and ultimately avoid having to close any of these services down in the future.
Thank you. Question 2 comes from Councillor Linnaeus.
Yes, thank you. And I think you've already said, Rob, that your consulted stakeholders have expressed concerns in relation to the heritage recommendation. Can you explain what their concerns are and how you intend to respond?
Thank you, Councillor Ayres. So there's 3 points that amongst them the heritage partners have raised. One is to query the PMAG arrangement, which is Peterborough Museum Arts Gallery, which is the trust, long-standing trust, which operates the museum and Flag Fen, and concerns around how that needs to be reviewed for future purposes. It's very long-standing commitment, but there is only one trust member. And the way that we wish to deal with that, we've already appointed a legal team to represent PMAG and the museum behind that, and they're working behind the scenes alongside this to look at how that might be dealt with more effectively in future. The second area is around accreditation, and the concern raised that if we do appoint Peterborough Limited or a subsidiary of to operate this, we may put at jeopardy our accreditation status for the museum. And I'm pleased to say we've been liaising with a number of partners around this. There's no immediate threat to this. We've spoke to Jamie Everett, who's the Regional Museums Development Manager, to get some guidance around this. Our accreditation is not yet due. However, we are working with our legal teams to make sure that our subsidiary proposal deals with that by making it clear that this is a not-for-profit organisation and in the public interest to develop culture and leisure and the arts offering. And the third query has been around procurement. And this year there has been an announcement that there's going to be a new bill brought forward around procurement rulings and how that affects TECL. Again, our legal teams have looked into this in great depth. I should stress that it's still a bill yet to be passed. As it stands, we think, based on the current relationship, we've got no issues around this, but we're also confident that if it is improved in future, we can navigate this through the arrangement that we put forward under the subsidiary. Again, it being a not-for-profit organisation, but also around the fact that it will be a non-subsidy arrangement. We're just providing the pure costs for the service. They're the issues that have been flagged. Thank you.
And question 3 from Councillor Coles, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. I've also had letters myself from people concerned about this process, and I've been trying to explain it in very simple terms. It's an immediate cost problem that we have, something in the region of £2 million that can be saved out of the budget simply by making this move, but everything else will be the same. However, this paper doesn't really cover the long-term strategy and what it will be for the development of these services. Could you explain what the plans are if this approval is to be given the go-ahead for the future, please?
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Yes, totally agree. This paper is specific around dealing with the immediate operational matter of how we deal with these services. And I should say that we're in an interim arrangement at the moment. We haven't got a formal operator, and this will deliver that. Longer term, we absolutely recognise that each of the services needs a detailed plan around the long-term development of a strategy behind this. Again, working with partners, not just in the heritage, but also in library and also in the leisure sector to make sure that we've got the right best offer for Peterborough. What my proposal would be is that beyond this, once we've established the model so we can build with an operator to develop that strategy, we would come back to a future cabinet to share those proposals and seek your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else? Got any questions? No, we've got everybody. Okay, I'd just like to say a few words. Firstly, thanks to Kitron and the team, she's here today, that have been working on this proposal, and indeed Jamie and Rob more recently, because we do take the provision of leisure, culture, heritage and libraries seriously. What many people will not understand is that with Vivacity as a charity trust, we benefited from considerable rate relief on all these public buildings. And what's happened since then, and this has taken some time to put right or put in order, is to find a legal vehicle in which to operate that gives us those benefits without the onerous rules, regulations of charities. But this is something that regularizes an arrangement that has been very loose, because it was good that we managed to park these services into Peterborough Limited and all the team and keep everything going. But this will put in place proper agreements between an operator, it just happens to be Peterborough Limited, but it could have been anybody else. And we may still look to further that work because as a council, we must look to all solutions and find out the best way of doing things. But the expertise, as Councillor Allen said, still remains within the people running it. We understand concerns about museums and accreditation and all these other things, but I would have expected, and as Rob's just outlined, those things have been looked into. And what I would say to people on the outside who have a view is come and talk to the officers when you have concerns. This work's been going on for quite some time. It's all transparent and available. And if things become a problem, then we'll fix those problems. So whether it morphs into a CIO at some point, or whether we have to change certain things in order to meet accreditation, but I think Rob's outlined that the advice we've been given so far. And Andy touched on a very important issue that, you know, it's circa 2 million that is on the line here. And when we're now talking about the budget challenges we have, you know, with one child costing £1.5 million adding to our budget pressures, 3.5 now in terms of it goes up. It's not mismanagement of the finances of the council, it's pressures of service on the council that is leading to our deficit. Not mismanagement or anything else, it's pressures on service. That is what is causing our budget deficit to grow from what was nothing, more or less, at the start of the year to slowly creeping up. So if we weren't to do this, it would be negligent of us, because we are trying to save taxpayers' money by doing what is a fairly straightforward transaction, moving it into a vehicle company that will benefit from those rebates in terms of reliefs, and we can't do otherwise, because I have been asked to suspend the decision. I won't do that. It's ridiculous. There's too much work gone on here. It's exactly the same as we're doing now, but we will just be doing it in a different company. Nothing changes. And the concerns that have been raised, I'm satisfied that they've all been addressed. If somebody else, whether it's here or outside or opposition members, have questions, come and talk to the officers who are dealing with this work on a day-to-day basis. So I think, members, I don't have anything else to say other than I will touch on at this point, because it's probably not relevant anywhere else in the agenda. Some of our leisure facilities have been surveyed, and RAC has been found in 2 of our buildings. and a media frenzy on that has ensued over the last few days with all sorts of, you know, conspiracy theories about we've closed them to sell them. It's complete fantasy. It is fantasy. We would be negligent in our responsibility not to inspect our buildings. This is a national issue. Unfortunately, we've been not affected in any severe way like other local authorities. We have found rack in the Key Theatre and in the swimming pool, the regional pool. So, as a reassurance, there is no issue here about the council wishing to sell them off and concrete over the embankment. These are all ridiculous fantasies made up by political opponents of this administration and others. So what I'm saying, and the Cabinet is saying, we're doing the right thing, but I want to be positive, and if we find, after surveying these properties, they're safe and habitable, we will open them immediately. But until I get that reassurance in safety terms, it would be, again, negligent for us to do anything else. So that's on public record. There is no intention to do anything with these things other than get them open. I also will reaffirm it is the long-term ambition to build a new leisure and pool centre, and that work has been progressing behind the scenes, but like everything in the council, it moves slowly. And we have identified an operator to take it forward. I'm just waiting for the team to confirm the business case details and that operator is happy. Because, folks, the regional pool has had its day. It's tired, it has asbestos, it has no end of other problems. And do we keep chucking money into a pit of water, or do we reinvest in a more modern facility? And that's the course this administration is taking, and I think most people will be pleased that leisure continues. Councillor Brian Tyler.
Thank you, Leader. I've been asked to, by former Councillor June Bull, to ask a question. Why a 5-year contract to Peterborough Limited, not 2 years, to allow for a charitable incorporated company?
It's not technically allowed, former Councillor Bull, and you know that, but because we're nice people, I'll allow that question. But I'll allow Rob Hill, because I do know the answer, and it's just a legal, technical one, and it's up to 5 years, but it could change. But Rob, there is a reason for that, but you explain.
Well, firstly, I should stress it's not just for the heritage sector, it's for other areas of the business as well. So we have to look at the long-term planning for leisure and for libraries, as I said. We think that it's right, and from speaking to many of our key partners, such as English Heritage and Arts Council, to have a long-term plan in place. When you afford a 2-year timescale, it's very difficult to make those long-term plans that we need to do so. The leader is quite right, though. It's a 5-year subject to clauses, so we can change and tweak if we need to do that. That's our reassurance there. However, it's only right for the subsidiary to have that stability to be able to plan for the future. Thank you.
Indeed, there would be no point in Kitron and her team planning for something that's only going to be 6 months. That's the boat they've been in so far. They need some certainty of what is happening, but it will be covered under contract. The other thing, and is for example, if it was a CIO, which people are kind of saying, oh, why don't you do a CIO? Because it takes 5 years to do it. Well, you can have that, you can shake your head, June, all you like, but that's the advice we're being given. That is right. That's what you're advising, Rob?
We've been advised 3 years, Leader.
3 years?
5 years to get everything in place.
Right. Okay.
Beyond that, but 3 years.
So that's just, again, people say, why can't you do this? Yeah, we've considered it, but our legal advice says it might take 3 to 5 years to get everything in place. So, but it's not off the table, and that may just be museums and the heritage stuff, but we need certainty in terms of leisure, which has suffered badly. The pool has had no end of issues about Legionella and now asbestos. You know, we need a new pool. And I think most people in the city would agree with that. So I think we're done with that. So let's be clear. This is a £2 million saving on the line here, which, given our budget challenges, I can't see we have any other choice, but it doesn't lock us in. I'll reiterate, if people have got suggestions or other things, that you think we haven't addressed, come and get the answers. Don't just go on social media, come and ask the people who have the answers, which is our professional team, both in legal terms, this all gets checked, and from a contracting point of view. There are recommendations on page 37, and there are 3 of them. Are we happy to agree, all those members? Agreed? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 8 is the award of contracts for respite care and accommodation for adults with learning difficulties, autism in Peterborough. Stephen Taylor will be picking this up, but I'll do the introductory paragraph. This paper seeks approval to award a contract for the provision of 11 respite and crisis beds to start in November 23 as the existing contract comes to term. The proposal for the beds to be contracted in 2 lots. Lot 1 for 6 beds directly commissioned by the Council for a period of up to 10 years, and Lot 2, 5 beds jointly commissioned with the ICB for a period of 1 year. Approval is also sought for the Council to enter into a collaboration agreement under Section 75 of the National Health Service Act 2006 with the Integrated Care Board to set out funding arrangements for the Lot 2 contract. So, Stephen, do you have anything to say by way of introductory remarks, or do you want to go straight to questions?
No, Lisa Murray is going to give a little bit of background, who's led on this work from within the commissioning team.
Well, it's always nice to have fresh faces in the meeting. Lisa Marie, then, why don't you tell us, and then if anybody's got any questions, I'm sure they'll ask.
Thank you. Apologies, I pressed my button too early. So this is as quite straightforward, due to the termination or coming to term of a contract for the current provision of beds. The contract went out for tender. There were 2 bidders for Lot 1. 1 was successful, and for Lot 2, 2 again. 1 was excluded because it didn't meet the criteria. So Lot 1 is proposed for up to 10 years. That's the social care element for 6 beds, and Lot 2 for 5 beds for the period of 1 year, and that's due to withdrawal of funding from the ICB. I don't think there's anything in that, unless anyone's got any questions, really.
Anybody? See, Councillor Ayres. You can rely on Councillor Ayres for a question.
I like questioning.
She likes to probe.
I like questioning. You know I do. I just wanted to ask about that Lot 2, Lisa Marie, and why it was that the ICB board would only go fund for 1 year. Why? Don't they know what their funding is in the future or something like that? Can you explain that to us? Because I think that caused a bit of a problem, didn't it? Which is why this has been split up.
It caused a problem in terms of the actual tender. This has been a long historic situation with the ICB. They funded it on this basis for a number of years under a previous contract. They've done some work to determine the utilisation and the demand from their perspective, and they've, in addition to that, commissioned a single bed that's county-wide directly for a period of 9 months to, again, determine utilisation and access. So from our perspective, people who've got joint funded needs will continue to have access to those beds, and they'll receive their funding from health in the way that we do under the joint funded arrangement. So if somebody's got social care and health needs, they will still be able to access those beds, and we'll still be able to claim the funding from their health element. In terms of the bed utilisation, the 6 social care beds operate at about 70%. Health, the data that we've got suggests that actually those beds have been blocked for a period of time. So actually that tells us we need to do something different for the longer term solution for those individuals who are using those 5 beds or accessing those 5 beds. Those 5 beds are county-wide, so it's not just Peterborough, it's Cambridgeshire as well.
Thank you for that. And because you've got down here a whole list of creative solutions as well. And I just wondered whether the plan was to look into those for the future. Is that part and parcel of this year, only a year, as it were?
So we will be looking throughout the period of this year at utilisation. We will be working with our ICB colleagues about something which is much more accessible and health driven, because these are for health beds rather than social care. and it is about them commissioning them jointly with us rather than us leading on that.
No other questions? I don't see any. I think you can probably hightail it out of here if you like.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. No, I'm just going to go to the recommendations. Matt's getting ahead of himself now. He wants to go to the next item. The recommendations are on page 47. There are 3 of them. Are they all agreed? Agreed. That again is unanimous. Thank you very much. So we'll go to the supply of temporary agency resources to the council. Item 9. They're on pages 55 to 62. This is Councillor Coles to introduce this.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm here really for the Cabinet to approve the recommendations for the Council's new temporary resource solution and to enter into contracts for the provision of agency workers within social care and non-social care with effect from the 1st of October 2023 for a maximum contract period of 4 years. This is a new arrangement using our partner ESPO, which will allow the Council to have a more cost-effective and flexible approach to providing future temporary resource requirements. And Mandy Pullen is here to ask any questions if members have them. Thank you very much, Leader.
Mandy, do you want to add anything to that, or are you just happy to go to questions if there are any? So, any questions? Go on, have you? You have. I knew it.
Just one very brief one. Why didn't we do it before?
So we had a contract with previously with Opus, and that was something that we used for both agency and non-agency. We've done an evaluation of that contract, and of course it's all about value for money and flexibility for the council. And whilst we've looked at that contract, we've decided that actually whilst it remains so for social care, it's not flexible enough and doesn't offer the value of contract for the rest of the organisation. So along with the procurement colleagues, we've looked at alternative options.
It's like everything. It changes over time. Other people in the market come into that market, or their prices reduce, or there's more flexibility in different ways of working. So it's a moving feast, and it's good that we've undertook the review, as we do with all our services, to seek out best value and indeed innovate and find new people that can provide services, either better outcomes or at a better price. Okay, so we'll move on to the recommendation, and thank you all for that, which is page 55, those recommendations, and there are 4 of them with some subset headings. Are we all agreed on those? Agree. That again is unanimous. Back to Councillor Coles then for item 10, I think it is, for the Budget Control Report, quarter 1. And again, it's probably with Emma, is it? Andy.
That's correct, Leader. Yes, Emma's here to answer any questions. The report outlines a projected 5.1 million overspend position for this financial year as at the end of quarter 1. The key pressure driving this position is coming from a sharp rise in complexity of need and demand for children's social care placements. We're also still managing a number of budgetary risks as outlined in section 4.4 of the report. Most of these are demand-driven or a result of the continued high rates of inflation. Mitigation plans have been developed and are being implemented to eliminate or reduce these risks to a minimum. We were lucky that we were proactive in establishing an inflation reserve, and we will be able to use this to mitigate the immediate impact of cost increases from energy, from contracts, and the staff pay award, whilst the future year's impact is considered as part of our budget setting process. As you have seen, the financial position remains challenging, but we have already taken steps to strengthen expenditure controls and implement new measures to improve income generation. With that brief summary, I'm therefore happy to recommend that Cabinet notes the recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
Any questions, folks? I think I referred... Who? Ryland, you want to say something? Go on.
Thank you. I was just going to ask, obviously, with this report being slightly behind now and a few months out of date, are there any key highlights that you can update us on things that might reassure us from some of the concerns or things that we've since become aware of without preempting the next quarter's report?
Yeah, of course. So the most recent update is fairly in line with this. We've actually got a £5.3 million overspend projected, so very close to figures here reported. The risks, as mentioned in the report, we have been focusing on making sure we've got plans in place for those to minimise the impact in the current year and future years. The report does refer to improvements that have been made since the end of June. So Clare Lodge, for example, we were facing challenges around that. We now have new fees in place. All providers have accepted those fees, and we are expecting that to now break even in year. Housing, we have seen a huge rise in the demand for temporary accommodation. The team have been working incredibly hard on bringing that position down and supporting families. We are now expecting that pressure is reduced from the 2.32 to 3 million in the report down to 1 million. And we are continuing to work on that to try and bring that down to close that gap by the end of the year. The savings programme, as identified in the report, you know, we were confident that we would deliver that programme fully by the end of the year. At this point, we had 5% of the savings categorised as red. I can confirm that at the minute we've got 3% of those savings categorised as red. So we are on the right track, but I think it is fair to say that it is we are in a financially challenging situation. It will involve us continuing to tightly manage expenditure. We have got a number of actions that we are working through at the minute, so reducing our use of agency, reviewing all our reserves commitments, the capital programme, we are still reviewing that to make sure that we can bring that down if possible and reduce our borrowing. So it is very much a moving feast at the minute, but not a lot has changed since this position was reported.
Great, thanks. I don't see anybody else wanting to comment, but what I was about to say is I referred to it earlier in the meeting. A lot of the pressure, not just inflation, is coming from demand, and particularly in children's services. So John, did you want to say anything by way of just illustrating or giving some flavour of what we as a council are facing in children's services, because I know there's a lot of interest in it, and what we're doing to maintain our service but also strive for improvement, and how are the pressures affecting you and your team?
Sorry. Thank you, Leader. Thank you for the question. It'd be fair to say that circumstances in children's services in Peterborough are unprecedented. I think there are 4 key agendas that we're currently working to, and I would describe that as the perfect storm. I think we're seeing an increased demand in the volume of work that's coming through the front door. I think there are 2 reasons for that. I think some of that relates to societal conditions currently, so cost of living, pressure on families, and also the consequences of living in a post-pandemic world contributing to that. So we're seeing higher levels of demand, and the work that's coming through the front door is generally more complicated and more complex. So that is driving costs into the service. Alongside that, we're also at a critical phase of our development with the conclusion of the work that we do with the decoupling from Cambridgeshire. I'm excited about that. I think that gives children's services in Peterborough a bright future, but it's not without some challenges and difficulties in the short term. The third agenda has to be around children's services improvement. Colleagues will recall that we were issued with a statutory notice of improvement. That work is well underway in terms of fixing some of those critical issues. But as that work progresses, it's highlighting that there are other areas where we would want to do better for our children. And then finally, the fourth agenda has to be around transformation. And the reason for that, as you've heard clearly today, is that with the increase in the volume of work coming into the service longer term, there are issues around long-term sustainability. So the solution to this has to be to transform our way out of this critical and challenging period, and we will be bringing forward a number of investor save opportunities in the fullness of time, which will allow us to transform the service into one which is, in many respects, reactive to one which has a far greater focus on delivering services for right children in the right way at the right time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I didn't see anybody else wanting to speak on that, but it's a very serious subject which the administration take very seriously. We are on top of the challenges, and we share those challenges with the Chief Executive and the Director and the Cabinet and the other members of CLT. And we are working to improve matters, and I'll be announcing some things that might help in a step in that direction at the end of the agenda items, which we'll move on to the last one after we've done the recommendations, which is page 63, 3 recommendations there. We're happy to agree all those? Agreed? Okay, final item is item number 11, the Corporate Performance Report, which falls to me and the Chief Executive, because I don't think Ray Hook is here. But this report is for 23-24 Q1 performance, setting out the key achievements, successes, challenges and performance of the Council. Cabinet are encouraged to consider the content and outline how the performance of the organisation is aligned to the Council's city priorities. So Matt, do you want to add anything to this?
Just like to emphasise the importance of having a handle of our performance as an organisation. That is shared now routinely with the staff, with partners, and it's really important for Cabinet members to have an oversight around their individual portfolios, but also that cross-cutting nature. I'd also emphasise the going back to the sort of challenges around governance, financial challenges, etc. There is a very big focus now across the sector of understanding performance. And I think it's an area which was in our corporate improvement plan when we started this 18 months ago. And actually, I think it's absolutely essential to understand, you know, your baseline, your performance, your targets, and that narrative around the successes. We touched on Peterborough Limited just now around some of the work we've done around heritage, libraries, leisure, etc. But it's really important for, you know, members of the public, residents, councillors to understand how we're doing. So we use it as a very simple format around the 4 priorities. But I think it's essential that Cabinet members have that oversight, and this report does go to scrutiny as well. Thank you, Leader.
Any questions on that from anybody? No? Okay, no, that's good. We will move to the recommendations on item 11, and it's just basically for noting in terms of the report for Q1 23-24 that the Cabinet agrees that. Are we happy? Agreed. Okay, folks, just that is the end of the formal business today, but I just wish to make some announcements in terms of for the public record. Some months ago, many members will know as members of the Council in the wider sense that we had some changes within the Conservative group, which was rather disappointing, but it is what it is. We've moved on and had to regroup. But at the time, speaking particularly around children's services, we were looking to boost the support to children's services, and former member Ray Bisbee was going to take up that post, but sadly he decided it wasn't for him anymore to be a Conservative, despite being voted in as one, as were a number of others. So temporarily we had to move things around, and some people seem to have misunderstood that I currently am the Cabinet Member for Health and Social Care with 2 advisors. Councillor Ayres has nothing to do with health and social care. She is the Cabinet Member for all sorts of things. She's got the longest title going, I think. However, today I'm making some changes in order to put those plans in place in terms of making some improvements to boost particularly children's services. So the legal officer will issue the titles in terms of from a democratic services point of view. But today Jackie Allen will take on the cabinet role of children's and education, and she will be assisted by Councillor David Over in terms of David has a long career in education and will support Jackie in that role, but she'll take the responsibility of children's services from today, now. In addition, Councillor Ayres will just slightly change portfolios in terms of skills, university, and what else was it? And the City College. So the details of the portfolios and what's in them, the legal officer will issue to everybody as soon as they're drafted. And I will step down as Cabinet Member for Health and Social Care, because I already have enough to do. And I'm promoting Councillor Ishfaq Hussain to that Cabinet role with immediate effect. And he'll be still supported by Councillor Tyler in that role. And I don't think I've missed anything there, have I? And everything else remains the same, I believe. Is that right? Yes, I think I've got that. There we go. So that's with immediate effect today, in order to bring some more robust support where it's needed, as I said, particularly in children's services. It's important that all councillors, those in the Conservative group and indeed opposition members, work together to continue our improvement journey, and political stability is a key issue which I think the panel are looking for, and I hope that continues, and we can all work together to try and improve the council. With that, folks, I don't have anything else to say, so I'll close today's meeting. Thank you all very much for attending.